Hello and welcome to the good, the bad and the what the fox. For the very first time we have a brand new entrant into the series. We've started with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman respectively, inversed with their films, and then it moved into the crazy Nicolas Cage. We've had many installments of him. This comes after Nicolas Cage Volume 6. We've had Van Damme, we've had 5 volumes of him, we've had only one Wesley Snipes, only one Scott Atkins. I think Eddie Murphy's had one. I'm just looking down there. John Cusack's had quite a few as well. And to be honest with you, I'm looking at the shelf, and Christian Slater there is a John Cusack, a Nicolas Cage, a Scott Atkins and a Wesley Snipes creeping on the way, but I haven't got 10 films yet. Scott Atkins, I think I'm up to 9, and if I went upstairs and dig, I would definitely have 10. But this is about Bruce Willis. That's why I'm standing here, my little diehard, with John McClane and Alan Rickman up there, hands, the Die Hard. Let's talk Die Hard. So Die Hard needs to be the first entry, and I watched this last Christmas. It is a Christmas movie, before anyone says anything. And it's obviously the movies that made us have recently done a thing on. Fell asleep watching it. It's directed by John McTiernan, who also directed Die Hard with a Vengeance, also directed Predator, but then also directed Basic, which has also recently just been in the Samuel L. Jackson. So there's another guy I've done a lot of good, the bad and the what the fox for. And you think, what the fuck happened to John McTiernan? He just sort of went weird. He did 13 and all this. He did some classic films in the 80s. But yeah. So yeah, Die Hard. Script went around for years. Frank Sinatra was meant to be a sequel to one of Frank Sinatra's detective movies. He was too old, and they were cannon fodder for anyone who would do it. Bruce Willis was in Moonlighting, which I've never seen, and was creeping around, and everyone kind of laughed at the fact of, you know, it's meant to be an action film, but it's also meant to be about an ordinary guy caught in a strange situation at a Christmas party. Okay? And I think Die Hard, when I seen it, I don't know who Bruce Willis was, but Bruce Willis is an amazing action star. I think it's an everyday action star. It totally works. You don't have to be, come with me if you want to live, kind of stuff like that. It can be like anyone, you know, anyone would be hot. Look at Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is rolling around and freaked, and then all of a sudden someone, let's have him chase a bus and see how that goes. Boom. Do you know what I mean? So, when I look at the good, the bad and the what the fucks, and just coming off the way from Die Hard, it's great to see, like, this is the film that made them. And then you look at, you know, did they make the right choice there? And then they become the Anne character, then they do some weird shit, and Bruce Willis, mind. So Die Hard really hit home, and what we've had 4 sequels to Die Hard. But I put a film up today called Killing Fields. Bruce Willis is doing some random shit. He is literally keeping up with Nicolas Cage here, but Nicolas Cage, who sort of like redefined himself. I'm just gonna give a shout out, got my Mandy Pop final there. Just got them. First ever Nicolas Cage Pop final. Bruce Willis just seems to be taking a paycheck. Literally, I mean, some of the shit he's been putting there, it's always the same face. Cosmic Skin or Sin, one of the two, will be an entry in this, and G.I. Joe Retaliation will be the next one, because I bought the G.I. Joe box set and I've just recently watched G.I. Joe 1. Wanted to revisit the second one before I watched Snake Eyes, even though Snake Eyes is a fucking prequel. Okay? But again, Bruce Willis has turned up in that, but Dwayne Johnson does. But going back to Die Hard, great action film, loved it as a kid, big explosions, lots of practical effects, blowing the shit out of that, funny, yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, pop culture reference, Bruce Willis invincible. Going into it, the falls, what do you think I'm ordering? A motherfucking pizza, you know, the shoes, everything, the feet, the deaths, the blood. It's just, when you've seen it as a kid, that is a movie. And what a score not to be on vinyl as well. I loved it. Yes, it could have a sequel and would set up the franchise known as the Die Hard franchise. I'm nowhere near the action movies, but, you know, stuff like, everyone would have a Die Hard movie in the repertoire. Van Damme would have sudden death, you know. You can get there. Stallone technically will get stuck in a fucking, what's the word? Daylight. Stallone was a contender for the next one to start, mind, because there's a film in there called The Collection. But yeah, we're talking about Bruce Willis, and we're talking specifically about Die Hard here. Great. Scores mint, casting's great. You feel for Bruce Willis. He plays it as a pissed off cop. He's not superhuman. He knows how to use a few guns. Not invincible. He's not taking on, well, he just sort of kind of take on a helicopter. But, you know, you feel it. You really action suspensing. John McTiernan as well would return to do Die Hard with a Vengeance. And that's no disrespect to Rennie Howland, who came in to do pretty much a clone sequel. We'll get there. Because there's not going to be 5 Die Hards in this one. You know, because I'm sure I can get at least 5 volumes of Bruce Willis. And it's a shame I actually just recently watched Hostage. So I might wing Hostage. I would have to find it to hold it, even though I haven't got a Die Hard handy. I mean, I probably have. I have This is the Die Hard I've got handy. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Box set I've got Die Hard 1 to 4. As he looks bong-eyed. If you actually put him, this is the classic boo-boo in it. When you put them together. I went to picture see Die Hard with Vengeance. That's why Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's one place on the shelf. But we'll get there with the Die Hard sequels. But yeah, as a film, it put him on the map. And then where does he go from there? That's what we're going to do. We're not going to go in order like IMDb, because once, I mean, if you just look at him, TV star in the 80s, right? Hits big massively with Die Hard. In the start of the 90s, we had Die Hard 2, and then he was sort of, he skilled with Debbie Moore. He was in Death Becomes Her. He was in Colours of the Night, where his penis just floats past the fucking screen, like, whoa, what's going on there? And stuff like the Jackal. The Jackal's amazing. We've got the Jackal. We'll get to the Jackal. Fifth Element, do you know what I mean? And like, he sort of really peaked around the 90s. Die Hard with Vengeance came along, and he was just like the king. Michael Bay, Armageddon. So like, he owned the 90s. And into the 2000s, sort of, you know, he brought out another Die Hard. You know, he turns like Sixth Sense. Do you know what I mean? He kind of like evolved Unbreakable Glass. Unbreakable Glass. So there, I put them in the superhero section. Can't do that. Yes, I can. You know what I mean? He's been in so many different versions of movies. I mean, Disney movies and all that. But now, ever since he said no to Expendables 3, or whatever the fuck happened with Expendables 3, he has literally been in release after release. Hard Kill, Death Watch. Like, I mean, obviously he was in the remake. We'll get there with the remake of Death Wish. Killing Fields came out today. Apex Predator came out a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? And he's always like the Bruce Willis pose. Cop Out. You know what I mean? He went boom, and then, but he must be making it. What's another one? Vice. There's another one. So I've got plenty. I can see Vice from here. I just remember to look in sci-fi. You know, I had interesting things to rant about this to Mitch. I actually have 2 copies of this, but we'll get there. So that's Bruce Willis. So until I can 12 Monkeys. You know what I mean? 12 Monkeys is fucking awesome. So yeah, I don't need to leave this room for 10 Bruce Willis films, that's for sure. But I won't cheap out by doing all 3 Die Hards in this one stint. But yeah, as it comes to Die Hard, what a fucking movie. What a debut. You know what I mean? He's probably in a few films before Die Hard. But Die Hard, boom! You know what I mean? Awesome. And yeah. Again though, you never see Die Hard on its own unless you get it as a Christmas film. Yep, it is a Christmas film. So welcome to The Good, The Bad and The What The Fucks. For Volume 1 for Bruce Willis. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. See you in the next part of the video. Hello and welcome back to The Good, The Bad and The What The Fucks for Bruce Willis. And I haven't got to G.I. Joe yet, I will soon. I actually watched Hostage over the last 2 nights. I started watching Swamp Thing, and then I went in the other room. I was getting ready, I need something to watch, and noticed that Hostage had audio commentary by the French director. Really interesting commentary, actually. Revisit this movie. I think this could have been a Die Hard movie. It's one of Bruce Willis's hidden gems. I know Bruce Willis has got so many films coming out. We've talked about this. And I was just thinking the other day, like when I was in the other room and I was looking around, and there's not much love for Bruce Willis in here, if any. I mean, there you go. Bruce Willis is there. Die Hard with a Vengeance. Striking Distance poster's been up, so Striking Distance is another film I've got a love for, and also Last Man Standing is one of my favourite VHSs for how much it glows in a UV. Like. But Bruce Willis, man, this is a lost gem. Movie's great, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. It could have been a spin-off of John McClane's story, and I think that's why they should have tried to go with the Die Hard films, not the invincible John McClane, but he's called Jeff in this, so I point that out. He's basically a hostage negotiator, starts off really cool. I mean, this is produced by Bruce Willis, he's got his name ahead. The directors really pushed Bruce Willis in this for a couple of different reasons. But Bruce Willis is rocking he's got a real beard at the start, but putting on this weird wig, and he's basically trying to get this kid out of the house, and it all goes south, it all goes down. He basically just, that's it, he's done, he's dusted, and moves to a small town with his wife, who he's having problems with, and his daughter, who is actually his real-life daughter, Ruma. So, this is where the director uses it. Bring in Kevin Pollard, Kim Coates is in there as the Watchman. And then you've got the creepy guy who was in Sleepers and also Justified, as well as Ben Foster, who's a force to be reckoned with this. And the story is basically based on a novel. A few things have changed. It's meant to set in suburban setting in the novel, but in this it's set out there, and the house is more of a character, and it's this, you just want to live in this house. Rich guy, and basically a couple of kids who are a lot younger than the book are basically right, that one. And one guy's looking at the car, one's the riches and the rags, the other one's looking at the girl, and the one in the middle is just like, I'm along for the ride. And they basically invade this guy's house, and it goes wrong straight away, as the dad of the two kids basically is rendered unconscious, and the girl is basically left to kind of look out for her brother, but her brother's super smart, sets the alarm off, and it goes south really quick because Ben Foster shoots one of the cops in an homage to Peter Fonda's death by Charles Bronson. And you know, so there's a lot of history of film and a lot of nostalgia, and this guy came across from France after doing the movie The Nest, when Bruce Willis seen, says, I want you to direct this movie. And there's a lot of like, right, it's a big Hollywood movie, get shit done. And again, this is when Bruce Willis was getting shit done. He's not flying in for a quick paycheck and off. So you're watching it, Bruce Willis, he doesn't want to get involved. He's more than happy to go, right, aye, your shift's finished soon. And then he eventually gets involved, and when he gets involved it's good. But Bruce Willis on the outside of this, he's trying to negotiate. I mean, the fucking negotiator with Samuel Jackson was popular at this time, and it's actually a DVD on the shelf of the rich guy's house. It's, you pointed out, there's a little Easter egg. But Ben Foster, man, steals the fucking show in this. So does the young kid, by the way. But Ben Foster goes full on creep, psychotic. When he's running through the vents, that is nightmare fucking visual shit. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of a cat and mouse around the house, well designed with the sets. It's very similar to what the director did with Eternal Sunrise of the Spotless Mind, where they utilise it as a set for little cubby holes and through vents and all this kind of stuff. So it's really good. It's intense. And then Bruce Willis doesn't pay this check the same, because it takes the twist where the Watchman, played by Kim Coates, who only has his eyes and his mouth and his voice to talk about this. I mean, he's literally dressed as a gimp. They use Bruce Willis's, like, you know, like real emotions, and the director really pushes Bruce in ways you don't normally see it. He feels vulnerable. The idea that, yeah, Bruce Willis is going to save the day, but people keep dying, so he gives up. So yeah, it's a film that came along just at the end of DVD shops, like rental shops like Blockbuster and stuff like that. So it's seen a lot of like sponsored. Bruce Willis is still hitting them home there, but a lot of people when I talk about Hostage, haven't seen Hostage, and Hostage is good. And I'll always say this, along with Striking Distance, are two stories that, yeah, you just look at them and you treat them as a Die Hard spin-off. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with calling him John McClane in this. You know what I mean? And I think it should have been a Die Hard film, but yeah. So in at number 2, and it's a good film, check it out, is Hostage. No one touches my duck. Hello? Welcome. Welcome. Hello? Get out of my chair. I am out of your chair. Out, I'm sitting down. Okay. Hello and welcome back to The Good, The Bad and The What The Fucks for Bruce Willis. Entry number 3. Happy to tell you today, it's not up here, but I actually found Assassination. Totally. Like Bruce Willis, you know, you talk about these films. Still sealed, Blu-ray release, so that will be in this top 10. When I was in the event, I was looking around, man, I used to see so many films, Hudson Hawk, and like, I'm got proper like nostalgia stuff. Like, and the thing about this is, what's really interesting, 5 Die Hard movies, and in each one in each entry, you know. But I mean, the next one will be Nicolas Cage. But I got off that rant because we're talking about the 12 Monkeys. It's upside down. Well done, Steve. Now, 12 Monkeys came along, Die Hard with a Vengeance era. Brad Pitt was just about to get massive because 7 was being filmed at the same time. Terry Gilliam went on to direct some amazing films. This was totally off the cards. I've got the VHS, and Bruce Willis almost looks like a cyborg on his eye. It did time travel jump around. It did happen, COVID. Do you know what I mean? The music, the very French sounding deep dude. Be a mint score to have on vinyl, especially with all the twisting patterns of the 12 Monkeys, black and red splatter and stuff like that. So there is love for that, and love recently now. As I said, I've got this on VHS if you want to check out the 12 Monkeys on this Instagram, on this Only True Entertainment page on YouTube. It goes down the rabbit hole of, you know, 12 Monkeys. Put it on Laserdisc, got the VHS, got it on DVD. Got it on Blu-ray. It's been released 3 times on Blu-ray, and Steelbook's just come out in 4K because Arrow picked it up. And I shit you not, when Arrow picked it up, I was absolutely devastated because the fat box editions just not there. Just not there, unfortunately. Now, I just opted to watch it on standard Blu-ray, and mainly because I was listening to the commentaries. There's a great Hamster Factory documentary, which is absolutely amazing. So this is packed, and Arrow did extend it out and transfer it a little bit better. But again, I was watching the Royal Rumble, and I thought, why not? So let's talk about the movie. It's been a TV series years later. It's had only 2 releases within the UK. Season 3 and 4, it's never seen the light of day. So there's a big following there because this was like a blip on the radar for Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis at this point shows you how good of an actor he is because he plays a silent treatment. Brad Pitt prepared for months and even checked himself into a mental hospital under the name of Jeffrey. And people were like, whoa, he's nuts, because at that time Brad Pitt was he was voted the sexiest man in the world that year, and people were like, well, he's got half a shaved head, he's got his own hair. But Bruce Willis plays the whole silent treatment. It does jump around, and I think when they talk about it on the audio comedy, they did say, look, there's a bit of a problem here, but when you look at Bruce Willis, you go, this is mint. Because again, when I talked about in the last bits, this is 95, 96. Like Bruce Willis, Fifth Element, Dial with a Vengeance, you know what I mean, peaking, absolutely peaking, and this was a curveball. And he wanted to work, he wanted to act. I mean, Brad Pitt originally wanted to play Cole, but then he didn't hold the character. This is one of the very first films as well where Bruce Willis was really sporting the shaved head look, like me. And I think he does really well. He really lets it open, especially when he's on the floor. He's doped up, he's drooling, he's only got like the jacket on, he's dripping wet. There's a lot of confinement in this movie. So you've got to give the hands up to Bruce Willis. But then it's just weird, the flashbacks, this dream, the loop of life, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you just this guy Cole is constantly looping in life. I love the discovery of like him in the war when he gets a bullet in his leg and that thing. Heavily fucking trailer back in the day. Very good score again on the trailer. Walking around, I mean, they did a lot of stuff in early CGI, like changing birds into animated, and then using a lot of de-aging on some of the surrounding stuff of Philadelphia, but then did simple stuff like drop the camera right low, budge the snow around, block out the entire rain of traffic, and just, you know, get Bruce Willis water on the suit, you know what I mean, while the bear wrangler and the lion wrangler goes right like that one out now, and just filmed it on rooftops. Very cleverly done. As I say, heavily trailered. Does take a couple of watches to sink in. Brad Pitt is absolutely phenomenal. Bruce Willis is just as good. There's a lot of other supporting cast there as well. As I say, score would be great. I was really disappointed when Arrow brought it out just for the special editions. I mean, they brought steelbooks out and all kinds of stuff, but again, check out the video on this channel. So anyway, off that rant. When it comes to Bruce Willis, this is a great film because he's trying to shake the action thing he's just got a hold of, and everyone's like, the instructor Bruce Willis. This showed you that he can act. This showed, because originally Terry Gilliam interviewed him for Fisher King, and he opted to go with Robin Williams, sorry. And he said even then he was a very interesting person, you know, a very thinking man actor. But as again, talking about these other films like Assassination, like Hard Kill, like Killing Fields, and all this stuff that keeps coming out and coming out and coming out, we'll get there with Bruce Willis. But it is an awesome film. As I say, it's out on Arrow. We just get recycled quite a lot. And as I say, from what I've seen of the TV show, I really enjoyed it. But again, get to season 2, and it's not been available ever since. Right, thanks for watching. See you in the next part of the video. Hello and welcome to the next part of the good, the bad, and the WTFs for Bruce Willis. This is like a test, obviously filmed on my phone. Working on how to convert this to my new computer, and being on Apple now, and it's been on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So Planet Terror, also known as Grindhouse, not available now. Flash in the pan, the Blu-ray double pack goes for a lot. And back in the day, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, who met very early on in their careers. I mean, Rodriguez has done twice as many films as Tarantino, but it's a great look if you look over. Tarantino's an old school filmmaker on the film. Robert Rodriguez is digital, you know what I mean? And they went on to do so many different films, so many different collaborations, from Dusk Till Dawn. 4 Rooms is something that's very there as well. So the idea of them, based on the idea of hanging out at Quentin Tarantino's house and watching back to back all kind of assemblies that Tarantino would do with film reels, And this is where Grindhouse comes from, also known as Dead Proof, also known as Planet Terror. So before this we had Sin City, which is the first bridge towards Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was in 4 Rooms as a cameo as well, and Bruce Willis goes all the way back to Pulp Fiction. Now, as I've ranted on throughout this, even when I'm putting stuff out, Bruce Willis is absolutely everywhere I look. Films spring to mind. Trauma Centre was here the other day. It's always the same picture. Look, Bruce Willis is just everywhere. He's just absolutely everywhere. The Killing Field almost looks like the same picture. Now again, using this as a bit of a test, and I've probably put the grain effect on because it's Grindhouse. Grindhouse is mint. It's a massive love letter to John Carpenter. It's part of the exploitation movies from the 70s. Rodriguez just had flat out fun with this. The idea that it spawned Machete as well. Machete Kills is there. Still waiting on Machete in space. But he had mental fun with this. Now we had Bruce Willis for 2 days. Even Quentin Tarantino didn't even realise Bruce Willis was in the movie. Bruce Willis turned up, did his close-ups, nailed his lines. Rodriguez has got not one bad thing to say about Bruce Willis in this. He came in, nailed it, went. And that's what they did with a lot of the cast in this. Planet Terror is flat out fun. It's over the top. It's bold, it's funny. The missing real segment, really funny as well. Completely miss out stuff, and like I love that. Like from what I remember from Dead Proof, it's more like stretched quite far out. You know, it's all about like Kurt Russell just chasing them down and all that. Rodriguez just went the other way, and this was packaged as a double bill, so you would go and see this, then it would have the trailers in the middle, and it was part of the pop culture at that point as well. But when it comes to Bruce Willis, it's a good film. It knows what it is. It has absolutely over the top fun, had a lot of like showing you how much fun you can have with budget, and just showing you how much powerful you can be in Hollywood when you reach the peak and you go, I want to do this. And everyone's like, yeah, do that. You know what I mean? Let's say Bruce was a very short appearance in the movie, but he's the main bad guy, has a lot of fun, goes home and does it. So we've had 12 Monkeys. I've bought a few recently as well. They have come home, so I've definitely got enough for another 10. But in at this entry is Planet Terror. The next entry into the good, the bad, and the what the fucks. And I do apologise. I have watched this recently. I've done a podcast for it, but not before I was like, Bruce Willis. This is a film that should have been in part of the Die Hard series. He's Tom Hardy. Before Tom Hardy was Tom Hardy. They shouldn't have put him in the water if they didn't want to make waves. This is a crime mystery movie set in the waterettes. But I have made this much effort because this is how much I love the film. Striking distance, glows in the dark. Bruce Willis. Yep, see, one line. Great film. Shit Blu-ray cover. I had no idea that had been released on Blu-ray, and that's the original cover. So that's just a bitchin' cover, right? The new cover is a gun. Bruce Willis's face with an oh shock, oh shit. Good film. Jessica Sex and the City. Jessica Parker. She's in it there. It's a good crime mystery murder. I love that kind of stuff. It's going up and down the river. Obviously kicks it in a gear and goes on full on Die Hard. But it's all about like cops looking after cops. The good cop. Have you seen that? Fucking scary, that mind. All about the good cop when Bruce Willis doesn't want to be the good cop. Like the ghost from his past goes around killing people. Great film, right? Shit Blu-ray cover. As I say, if you've never seen it, check it out. Definitely a fan of the Die Hards. He could be John McClane. Could be a sub-story. But yeah, just to chuck that in. Again, got the poster. Can't judge me on that. And in a quick jump cut, if Brick gets out the way, there's the Grindhouse poster for the previous one for Planet Terror. So the good, the bad, and the what the fucks. This would be a great time to do Die Hard 2. Die Harder. But no, I'm going to keep to my promise. That's keeping me mask on. Hello and welcome back to the good, the bad, and the what the fucks. I'm in my new chair. Let's just like. I've just watched Extraction and dropped it on the floor. Brilliant. It's going down here. Hello there. So yeah, Music Magpied a few things the other day. Not that I need to go in the other room and not find a Bruce Willis film. I got Colour of the Night and stuff like that, but I thought I'll chuck this on for half an hour. And then I realised the guy who's getting the big push is Kellyanne Lutez, who's in that Arena with Samuel L. Jackson. From the creators of Lone Survivor and Two Guns, Vengeance Runs in the Family. Bruce Willis looking to the right. So that's what you're looking for. Bruce Willis film coming out on Monday called American Siege, and at the moment I haven't got any copies in, so it's kind of like, is it going to come out? And then when you start thinking Once Upon a Time in Venice, it's like so many films of Bruce Willis, my mind explodes. I'm not even sure at this moment how many Bruce Willis films I've seen. So this started Bruce Willis 10 years prior to the events, got his hands cuffed and he just whips people's asses, good old Bruce Willis style, wrecks the floor with them all. And then it fast forwards to 10 years later and he's talking to his son, who's played by that Killian. And they're all about, the death of his wife, his mum, and vengeance. And meanwhile, there's this conspiracy with D.B. Sweeney's in this as well. The conspiracy of the satellite that's going to take over the world and espionage. There's a lot of well-used stock footage of aerials of cities because it bounces between Prague, America, Washington State and stuff like that, and there's a really amazing sunset visual. But again, you can tell the stock footage, but they're well used. The score is an ambience all the way through. The film does carry a very orange look to it. There is some good action throughout. There's a mental fight scene in a toilet, the bit where he gets his head smacked off the back of a glass mirror. Pretty heavy. Very isolated once like the threat has been solved. They've got 24 hours to sort this, and like Bruce Willis, seems alright in it. He's there at the start, then he gets kidnapped, so that's him out of the film for a while. And there's a bit where he returns and like the footage looks stunning on Blu-ray of just Bruce Willis, and he's just like, oh, it's a double cross. Bruce Willis is the bad guy, but then he's not the bad guy, and it's a trick all to catch the killer of the mother. So global world domination through satellites is going on. It's Bruce Willis's evil plan to like find out who killed his mom. And then it got really confusing. This actress on the front as well, who's Gina Carleo, I've just butchered her name. She's the ex-girlfriend of Killian in this, and they get together and they're like trying to fight. There's a couple of car chase scenes, done practical effects, yeah. A couple of shootouts. Again, there's some good stuff. There's a bit in a nightclub, fighting the nightclubs and stuff like that. But then a double turn comes with Bruce Willis, and it was like, alright, there's some footage uploading in the background, but they're like, alright, and then it jumped, and then it jumped, and then it jumped again, and then it jumped, and then bang, it went extraction, and then it was finished. I was like, what the fuck happened there? I had to jump back 2 chapters, and like, yes, I'm editing on that screen, but then I was looking, and I was like, is Bruce Willis just died? And like, Bruce Willis is like, right, kill him for your mum, and like, bang, he's dead. The bad guy gets his comeuppance, and then I'm watching it, going, and you see Bruce Willis like, oh, I'll stand you up, Dad, and he's like, no, I'm good. And then he sort of just goes into the fetal position, and then it cuts to the guy walking outside and just shoots the fuck out of the briefcase, and then it shows him standing at the grave, and I was like, this person, is Bruce Willis just died? You know what I mean? It's just, and then it jumps ahead to when the girl's like, oh yes, I want to get my job back, and then it jumps ahead again, and like, oh, there's that one person left we've got to kill, and I'm like, fuck me, it's like a ping pong at the end. So it's 92 minutes, wasn't bad. If you pick that up on the Bruce Willis, you would get, you would enjoy it. Whoever's made it had the eye for the action. I would say it's very contained. Bruce Willis doesn't even get his name. It's not like if went and Bruce Willis, he's second build, which to me personally would be and Bruce Willis, but then that would probably be a dead giveaway. That he's hardly in it. But he looked great in it. As I say, you see his little action scene, but as Robert Rodriguez said on the commentary for Planet Terror, Bruce Willis turns up, he knows his lines, he looks like a fucking action star because he is a fucking action star. Bang, done, next film, do you know what I mean? Next paycheck, Willis. But yeah, it was alright. It would go in the bad category because Bruce Willis to me has very fucking high standards, especially some of the stuff I love of his, and this is like, it wasn't a what the fuck movie. It's a good paycheck movie for him basically, but it falls in the bad category. So yeah, I'll have to work out how many films I've got left to do. I know Under Siege is the last. There's a wedding speech from 17 years is on from one of my cousin's weddings in the background, so I'll see you in the next clip. Hello and welcome back to The Good, The Bad and The What The Fucks. Now I've just watched, I can never pronounce it, Surrogates, yeah. Do have it on DVD and I picked it up. It's a rental copy on Blu-ray. As I said, Not sure how many Bruce Willis films I've done now for this Good, the Bad, and the What the Fox. There's so much going on filming wise. So I've just managed to get the surrogates in. It's quite short actually. Definitely would say about the hour and a half mark. Let's say the rental one. Quite a few bonus extra features. Music video. It Will Not Bow. The music video by Breaking Benjamins. So yeah, Bruce Willis looks really good in this as well because I'm playing the double act on it. It's a weird one because like I think with this, Bruce Willis is like it's a big budget movie. It's been put out there. It's Touchstone Pictures. It does look like Canadian bound as well. You know, it's very, although it's big in the future, it's also scaled down in a way. The guy who's the main guy who created the robots and pissed off about everyone's the same guy in I, Robot, who obviously was the farmer in Pig. Very famous actor. Don't know his name off the top of my head, but like I think he was wrongly cast because like it's a very similar role. It'll be James Cornwell, won't it? Very similar role in I, Robot. You know, futuristic. I can't believe this chair's knacking already. Anyway, off that rant. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of creepy makeup going on with Bruce Willis. I like the idea of them going out there and they're struggling to like live away from surrogate, and it gets a bit Terminator at the end when they're all running around. Then it gets a bit scary sometimes as well. It's a nice idea of the future. Vin Rames is in this as well. The bushy beard on Vin Rames looks mental. Who would let the beard grow that big above underneath their lip? But Vin's very although he's deemed as an action star in this, he was very delivery on dialogue. I've personally been able to witness that in real life, and like he delivers a lot of dialogue here, but he's a little pawn in this twist of the story, isn't he, as well? So it's kind of like I find it, you know, as much as I spent this much on the CGI and like some of it is a little bit weak now, it does feel quite bound, but the story is quite good there. You know, the relationship breakdown between Bruce Willis and his wife, his relationship with the partner, and just the idea of like, oh shit, gotta go outside. It's a kid, it's Biff from Home Alone. It's like the guy who controls the whole world on the keyboard, so I think that's a bit far-fetched. There's no like government hacking, super security Skynet place. It's just Biff from Home Alone with his keyboard. As I say, I watched it, I thought it was good. It's quite creepy in a way. Bit of conspiracy, sci-fi-ish. It's only a 12. But it shows you the weird point where this one was really big when it came out and it hit the pictures. And then a lot of Bruce Willis films are just slipping right under the radar now and stuff like that. So, I wouldn't say it's amazing. I'd say it's a borderline okay film. You know, Bruce Willis, he's got the old look, but he's also going for the younger look in it, which is quite, again, it's quite disturbing. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great. Do you know what I mean? So it is meant to be the good, the bad, and the what the fucks. So I'd say it was good for what it is and what it tries to be. This, again, Bruce Willis doing the dual agent kind of thing where he's robot himself and then the creepiness and the jump to the future. It's like, you know, Bruce Willis doesn't do that many sci-fis, but then he got into Looper and stuff like that, and then there's a Vice film. I think Vice is very similar to this. Now, Vice, that'll be revisited, I think, somewhere down the line when it comes to Good, the Bad, and the What the Fucks. The sci-fi clones and all that, aren't there? Robots. So yeah, we'll get to Vice. But yeah, it's definitely better than Vice. Right, next part of the video. Hello! Well, I haven't moved very far, have I? Still sitting in the same place. For 2 hours and 20 minutes was the next Bruce Willis movie, and it was Colour of the Night. Now, I haven't seen this for a long time. I just remember this as being the movie. There's Bruce Willis's dick as it floats across the screen. So if you want to see what Bruce Willis's dick looks like, this is the film for you. Yeah, I just always remember it as that movie and not remember much. I still remember it quite dominant on DVD, but it was an 18 rated, so it wasn't one I could get to. Bruce Willis, you know, origins action, and obviously his origins are moonlighting, so action was still quite new, and Bruce Willis was taking on some serious roles. And at the time as well, in the early 90s, you know, you had the, you know, Basic Instinct, Disclosure. You had all these, you know, actors where in movies being made where there was a lot of softcore porn in it. I mean, the Specialist was Saloon in the shower scene, so you had that kind of stuff going on there. If you can hear any weird noise in the background, it's because there's some footage uploaded from years ago, preferably 2006, I think that is. But I tell you what, this has just been on there, and I've absolutely just loved it. It's been on for ages. Bruce Willis leads an all-star cast. Jade March, who I've never seen in anything else, really, like, you know, she looks amazing in it, and obviously she has a lot to deliver in this if you haven't seen this movie. But you've got Lance Henriksen's in there. It reminded me when I was watching it a bit of like Detox, when, you know, they're all like group therapy. I mean, it starts off, Bruce Willis is a therapist but having a bad day. This woman is having a bit of a mental breakdown, and in the background we are going to have T-Ray, be quiet a minute, from Dr. Lipship screaming along there. So yeah, basically, she basically goes, oh, and just runs and jumps out his window, and it's a pretty good stunt. You know, there's a lot of good stunts in this movie, and there's one at the start where now you would do it with CGI. There's just this mannequin obviously falling from quite high, and they've got some really good shots of it, and then even like straight away there's an upward shot where it looks like the blood splattering out. Then there's this whole twist, and like in camera shots and stuff, how Bruce Willis can't see red. So he's got that. Then he moves over to LA to Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap, so he's in there as well. Benny from Mummy, who's in also Steven Sommers films, he's in there. Soul Glow's in there. Ruben Blades is in there as well. Ruben Blades, famously known for being a famous musician, but also in Predator 2. And then, you know, it's like this group therapy, and Sam Beckett, no spoil, I'm going to spoil the whole fucking film here. Sam Beckett absolutely gets butchered and murdered to hell with like this knife coming out there and just proper brutal stabbing. Brad Dourif is also in this as well. So when these people are getting therapy and Bruce Willis steps in, now Sam Beckett's been killed. He's made who he came to see to get a bit of therapy too. It's all this conspiracy, and they're all like, oh, who did it? And they're all got the different, like, you know, they've all got this different disorders, and they've all got the different kinds of tics. And like Brad Dourif, like, proper goes creepy, and you can hear Chucky come out with his voice and stuff like that. And you start to go like, who is it? Who's the killer? Meanwhile, Bruce Willis is just like, I'll just live in Sam Beckett's house. I'm going to keep calling him Sam Beckett because he's not even called Sam Beckett. Ruben Blades, Leslie Ann Warren, Brad Dourif, Lance Henriksen, Kevin James O'Connor. He's fucking neither of them, is he? Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap. I'll have a look. But, you know, I was watching it, and you know, it's like, oh, who did it? And it shows you the relationships, and this girl just turns up and Bruce Willis is living in there. He's talking on his mobile phones. If you're going to go to what the fuck moments in this, Bruce Willis's cock, obviously I've just talked about before, but there's a bit where Bruce Willis is lying in the back with a girl on top of him in full. There's a lot of bush in this movie. I'm just going to just put it out there. And next thing you know, there's a tank being driven up there, and like, who's remote controlling that tank? Do you know what I mean? Why is there a tank coming up there? And I was like, what the fuck? But the twists and turns keeps you guessing. As I say, there's some big stunts. There's a bit where there's a car just pushed over the end of the car park, trying to drop a car on Bruce Willis's head. There's a couple of car chase scenes. There's a bit where there's a train, they're trying to battle the train. At the end there's a big old watchtower, they're nearly falling off and going up. For like some of that, you know, with borderline just some drama mystery, really kicks in the action where you think, fucking hell, really kicking in that action. There's not really any real fight scenes, but at the end there, when the reveal of who the killer is, and you know, there's a big reveal very early on, like conspiracy. Like, not conspiracy, but like, oh, look at that, plain sight all this time. Like Sliver, have you ever seen Sliver? That's a really good film as well. But there's a bit where the guy's firing the nail gun, and Ruben Blades gets nail gunned, even like goes close into his fingers, and you go, whoa. You know, for some of that, I've always believed to be like a softcore porn film. It's more like, it's got a lot of action, a lot of mystery, and it's fucking brutal. You know, some of the deaths are really brutal, and some of the tones as well, but I think all the performances are great. I think Bruce Willis is great in this as well. Bruce Willis, yeah, he's an action star, but like the subtle things Bruce Willis does. But this is one of the movies where he would have worked hard on that. This wouldn't have been like a quick shoot. As I say, it was well filmed, well directed, I think, on that. Never seen that again on Blu-ray. It's a pretty solid DVD of it as well. 5 suspects, 2 lovers, 1 killer. Nothing is what it seems except murder. So yeah, I totally enjoyed that movie. And The Colour of Night, I have no idea. I'm literally been editing all day how many Bruce Willis films this is. I've got enough Bruce Willis films to go into it, so if I end up doing volume 2 straight away. But yeah, if you haven't seen Colour of the Night and you've got 2 hours in 14 minutes, check it out. Next video. Hello, we're up to number 9. I've literally ended the video now, and I was going, alright, I'm counting the clips, and there's a couple of clips. You've seen the clip when I'm above France on the aeroplane just talking about Bruce Willis. I'm like, aye. A couple of outtakes, and I was going, alright, so I'm up to 8. So this is the one after Colour of Night, and this is something I've seen before I started filming this. And yes, I am trying to wrap this up dead quick. Get it mastered, get it out there, because Alpha Dog was watched less than a month ago. Because I noticed it was in an unboxing. And again, you talk about the comedian that is Bruce Willis. He's one right here. Ben Foster, Hostage. Sean Hatsley, Emily Hitch, Sharon Stone, Justin Timberlake, Anton Yelchin, like, stop butchering people's names, and Bruce Willis. Inspired by true events. Obviously, this was known for a few reasons. One, Kong swinging in the background, but also Justin Timberlake taking the jump from music into film. Yanton, who was in stuff like Green Room, amazing film, unfortunately was killed. I would say this is a very early role for him. He doesn't even get on the front cover, even though he gets his name on the box. Kid from Faculty's on there. Sharon Stone's not on the box as well, but they do slice and dice it around. Ben Foster, man, again, talking about this Ben Foster, he's just a fucking animal in this. It's inspired by true events, so if you haven't seen it, stop watching this review. If you see it, Bruce Willis is interviewed, Sharon Stone's interviewed. They're interviewed as police, like witness interrogation things in their own home, or like in a documentary style of things. And it's showing you about the events of what happened to this kid and finding out what happened to this kid. And there's a big drug. Bruce Willis is like the big henchman drug guy taking it front. His son, though, is like trying to fill his dad's shoes. He's surrounded by his friends. And when after seeing this years ago, I really felt that this really captures, like, the kid basically is kidnapped, but like Justin Timberlake, I really enjoyed Justin Timberlake's performance in this, and I think, you know, they bring him in, want to be his friends. There's a lot of other famous people in this in small roles, breakout roles, and you know, they sort of like cast a shadow, like he's kidnapped but he's not kidnapped, and then it totally gets brutal. You know, you don't expect it to go where it goes, and you think, fuck me. But when it comes to Bruce Willis, he hits it hard. He again, like, he doesn't have to do much in this. He just has to act like a really nasty bad guy, and he does that. He's rocking some long black hair from what I can remember. Got the bit of a jackal look going there from cover. Yeah, it's cautionary tale, but for a UK Blu-ray release as well, I mean, it's slimline box. You don't get a lot of these. Not many, unless it's a really like low budget thing, like recently Demonic came out, and that's a very slimline. You don't get many slimline Blu-rays, and for this to be a big film, through Icon as well. If you haven't seen it, it's a gripping story, and what a shame, Anton. When I say Anton there, I'm thinking of fucking idle hands. But what a mess he was, what a loss. You know what I mean? Green Room's amazing. He pops up quite so more or less like Star Trek and Fright Night and stuff like that. But for this, it's a good film. Bruce Willis just stepping in there, hits a home run, and he's off. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'll see you for number 10. Before we get to number 10, I've just had this random spark from years ago in my mind, and it's not because I'm editing and uploading footage. Bruce Willis in a video game, Apocalypse. I assume when it was Bruce Willis and he's running around shooting stuff in the future. You know what I mean? He's everywhere. Okay, in at number 10, and this is a bit of a cheat, but it's fun and hilarious. It's a cameo. National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, Samuel L. Jackson, Emilio Estevez. National Lampoon's at the absolute hype, and this is one of the biggest cameo films you can imagine, from Whoopi Goldberg to Dennis Leary to Charlie Sheen to Corey Feldman to, like, it just goes on and on and on. And then Bruce Willis, and he turns up as John McClane in this. They basically blow the fuck out of Emilio Estevez's beach caravan when they think it's Emilio Estevez, and just happens to be Bruce Willis waving his flag as John McClane, and it's quite a funny cameo. Absolutely hilarious. William Shatner, Tim Curry, it just goes on. Spoofs, John Lovitz is there. It spoofs everything you can imagine. It's a really well made movie. It's been released a few times on DVD, hasn't seen the light of day on Blu-ray. But for the Bruce Willis, the good, the bad, and the what the fucks, that's brilliant. But again, he didn't have to do it. We're talking just after Die Hard 2 era. You know what I mean? He was shit hot and then would obviously work with Samuel L. Jackson a couple of years later for Die Out with a Vengeance. But yeah, New Line Cinema. And number 10 for The Good, The Bad and The What the Fox with Bruce Willis. Load of Weapon 1.
Now who's smiling? Now who's smiling? Now who's smiling? Now who's smiling?
Hello on the outtakes for The Good, The Bad and The What the Fox of Bruce Willis. You want to talk about Bruce Willis? Let's talk about the new Twilight Zone, which I didn't realise Bruce Willis was in till I seen it today when I put it out. But yeah, let's talk about the return of Bruno. Picked this up at the boot sale, could not resist. Picked up Fifth Element, unboxed American version as well. Bruce Willis singing, man. I'm actually going to listen to this next. So wish me luck. I might be back to go, what the fuck? But yeah, you want an outtake? You got one. Okay, for the final outtake for the Bruce Willis, The Good, The Bad and The What the Fox. His vinyl, I really enjoyed it. Yes, it was old, it was a bit crackly hickly there, but like it was just playing on the background and I was like, hang on a minute, this has got some funk to it, and he's just, you know, he's doing his best. And again, I love Hudson Hawk, so like I like Bruce Willis's voice when he's singing, so it's a grower for me, definitely a grower. I will be tracking down the CD, and I may mention it, I may not, but I've had a single for ages as well, Under the Boardwalk, where Bruce Willis is just lying on the floor with his hands up. Again, he's everywhere, from video games, The Return of Bruno. Just a standard black 7-inch vinyl, but yeah. This has been The Good, The Bad, The What the Fox for Bruce Willis. I got up this morning, I said I need to get this out of the way. I wasn't sure how many films I had left to film. There was 8. I've just powered through them. It was about 40 minutes, and then I thought, right, I'll just whap and crack this up, because it could be never ending with Bruce Willis. Never could be, always will be. We'll get around to Cosmic Sin, G.I. Joe 2, Assassination. These are films I've been trying to get to do. I still haven't seen Snake Eyes. It's just one of those things where it just keeps going and going and going. But yeah, thanks for watching.